one of the main topics here is going to be, how to build a very, very successful start. For instance, I've seen a lot of adverts for this product in my, past couple of months. How to build a very successful startup within already existing unicorn. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the stage Vykintas, the CEO from Saily. Round of applause, please. Woo!
So bright here. Yeah, thanks everyone. So, like previously mentioned, I spent my lifetime building products. My first one was when I was 15, actually. I built a recipes website that's basically, it grew quite fast. It got acquired. Then I joined a few tech companies there. And I landed at NordVPN. And NordVPN, I joined it 7.5 years ago. And I joined a single product company. And my last recent title at Nord Security was product strategy, meaning that I was responsible of building new stuff. Either it's new product or a new exotic functionality at NordVPN specifically. And one thing I learned after launching like 7 different products at one of 2 Lithuanian unicorns is basically we need to stop trying to invent new things. And this is really important because, majority of my career was spent in order to invent new stuff, and basically quite a few of these products, they were built because they were just cool new technologies, and that's about it. Quite a few people are taking AI currently as a new cool technology and trying to invent things that are not so, they aren't used but will be used maybe in the future. But instead, if we want to build technology hubs at the Baltics, we need to try and have a reproducible way of building new startups. And one way, I will only scratch the surface of what we do at Nord Security in order to understand and evaluate new products. And there are 2 categories of risks that you need to look into. One of them is a market risk. Basically, you need to understand if there's a market for your product. Another one is an execution risk. So this one's very important because you need to understand if you are not underestimating how much time it will take for you to build the stuff you imagine you will be building. And when you are doing it first time, you usually overestimating market and underestimating any execution risks. So a few tips, of how we can basically try and estimate it. Both of these risks are here. So with market, what you need to understand, is what market are you in. Majority of startup founders I talk to, they start with basically Googling a bit and then deciding that their startup is the next big thing, and that's about it. You need to be a top 1% of people who know the market in and out. And this includes, trying to understand if it's growing or not. This slide represents eSim growth trend according to Google Trends. And the red lines were when I started looking into the market versus when we started developing an eSim. And a growing market is important because you need to aim at either one of 2 things. One thing is your market should be growing, or another thing, your product should be 10 times better than the existing ones. So in growing markets like AI or eSIMs or or blockchain in some cases. It's easier to acquire new customers because of new customer inflow and how big it is. Every new customer that enters the market, they try to choose and evaluate all the options. So just being one of the options can be useful for you, and it would be cheaper to acquire new customers. I won't expand a lot about the better product, at least yet. So in order to understand where the market is, you don't just need to understand if it's growing, but how big it is as well. So we tend to compare, markets to the things we know for sure. For example, how big is eSim versus virtual private network? So even though it's growing quite fast and it looks like it's growing exponentially, it's still far away from being as big as VPN market, for example. And why it's important? It's important because if you would look into how many people will be using eSIMs versus how many people are using VPNs, it seems like these trends should cross in the future because, at least it's my subjective evaluation, but we'll see. So if you are joining market that's declining, here's an example of that. Where we get asked a lot at North Security why we don't build a standard antivirus software. The market's huge. Even though majority of people in this stage don't use it, the market is still very, very big, and probably they're earning billions. Nortons, McAfee's, and so on. But we are not building antivirus. This is one of the reasons why. The downtrending of the market basically means that majority of the people are joining the market that's, if it's not growing, it means that user acquisition channels are not there, meaning that your product won't be pulled from you. You will need to push it and push it hard. If you already have a brand, it will be possible to acquire users. If you don't have a brand, it will be impossible to get a mind share of users in order to get your product off the ground. And you, of course, want to look into competition as well. These are three of our competitors. And when I started evaluating eSIM market, actually, I knew only one of them, and it's the yellow one, meaning that I knew the smallest one on the slide. And the other two, you probably subjectively, you can know one competitor or another competitor. Before entering any market, you need to try and understand who are the winners of the market already, how they behave, how they acquire customers, and why they hire people, and how much they spend on marketing, and a lot of different things. One thing to note here, if your startup doesn't have a clear competition, I wouldn't advise you to basically get into this market at all. Why is that? Majority of venture capital, they will tell you that you should go after markets that have no competition. They play a different game than you, and odds are on their side because they are investing in a lot of companies, and they are aiming at very big outcomes. And for you, in order to maximize probability to build a product that's useful for consumers, you probably need to have competitors already. Otherwise, it's just pure randomness. If consumers will like it, if they want it, and so on. Having competition is not bad because you already have validation that someone needs it and that someone maybe even pays money for the product. So you need to know the competition well, and in order to evaluate the competition, you can probably use a good old method of comparing to the products you already know. So even though the competition is growing, it's still relatively early compared to NordVPN. And when we saw this graph, it was clear that eSIMs should be way more adopted by way more people than NordVPN. Current NordVPN market penetration in majority of the countries is less than 1% or 1% and a bit more, meaning that 1% of US population use NordVPN. If you look into eSIMs, we expect it to be way above 1% because of how big the market is. So evaluating competition, comparing to yourself and trying to understand if it should be bigger or smaller helps you understand how early you are joining the market as well. So when you are trying to pick what product to work on, one of the things you should be looking into is how the competition grows in terms of its people. So majority of successful products, what they do is they either raise money and hire people, or they just hire people because they get revenues in. If they are not growing in terms of headcount, you most probably be a bit concerned because they are either declining or they are flat-ish, and what that means is basically if you're building a new product, you might struggle with the same things they struggle. So, for example, they raised a lot of money, they spend a lot on marketing, but at the end of the day, they don't see a product market fit. So they are very well known, but they're not growing in terms of revenue, for example. So looking into headcount and looking into what job opportunities at these companies are is really very important. For example, if they are reading through your competitor job ads is one of the things we do quite regularly, because we try and understand what user acquisition roles they have. For example, if they are hiring for affiliate managers in United Arab Emirates, we understand that they are after this specific market, and they think that there's an affiliate opportunity there, and so on. If they are hiring developers of very specific kind, we try and understand what kind of integrations they're building, and so on. So looking through job ads is one of the easiest ways to try and evaluate what your competition is up to before they announce new things. And of course, you might want to read through their announcements as well. When they get funding, quite a few companies in Baltics, they are bootstrapped, meaning that you don't know much about their internals, but the ones funded by venture capital, they usually release these press releases where they want to brag, and then they basically give up information that's very important. And joining a group of companies that grow revenue 20% month over month is something you are aiming at. If they are not bragging about the revenues, maybe there's some other important clues that you can look into. And if you do investment announcement, don't forget to not disclose stuff for any competition of yours, especially if you are in commodities markets. So that's it about market. The main point about market is you need to try and evaluate that before building any startup, because majority of people don't. And we can move on to execution. In order to execute flawlessly, you want to not learn new things while doing execution. And if you look into NordVPN and compare it to Saily, basically the overlap in terms of product development is huge. Even though, Saily started out as not having any security involved, people were asking, why are you going after the travel market? Yeah. So the short answer was because it was easy. And easy in a way where the overlap for product development, we could reuse majority of website components. We have quite a few app developers at Nord, that we took in order to build Saily app. Backend payments, infrastructure, and all these things, they overlap almost to the point we were able to launch it so quickly. So besides product, you might want to look into all other areas and how they overlap with your existing skills or with your existing organization. So if you are looking to build a product for in an organization that's already big, you might want to look into the overlap of competencies, and I call it product organization fit, because we had examples of features or products that are not so relevant for the organization, and it's just so difficult to get them off the ground. Even though you build it for a year, it's so difficult to get them off the ground just because people don't understand it. People inside organization don't understand what you are building and why you are building it. With Saily, it was very easy to spin it off because it's an easy product. Everyone in the organization understand it, and the overlap of the people competencies that we needed from both product and marketing was very big, meaning that majority of the channels we used in order to spin off Saily were the same as NordVPN. There are, of course, a lot of differences in the product, and you start to see them only after you launch it, but before launch, we saw that the overlap is huge. So if you are a first-time founder, think of ways to think of things that you are good at already, and think of what you would need to learn while building this product. If there's a lot to learn while building this product, the opportunity might not be for you. Of course, it's important to look into the team as well and into individuals who are joining the early startup team, because some people get stuck on an idea and then they spend a lot of time even though it doesn't work. I tend to think that there's a category of people that adapt every week or even every day. So even though at first you start out with one idea, you end up with a different one once in production. And it's not, usually these people are, it's difficult to talk with them because they promise you one thing and the outcome is different. So in huge corporations, these people are problematic, kind of problematic. But the adaptations, you need them because it's not that like you are able to pick the right idea at first. Usually these adaptations are what makes or breaks the product. So I'm not providing any silver bullets here because we're still only number 3 provider in the market. Finally Saily is on that graph as well. We recently celebrated, a few weeks ago, we celebrated our first million paid customers. So that's nice. And but like all the examples, they have counterexamples. Probably some of you will build some startup, that counterexamples everything I just said. Hopefully, it will be you. So, yeah, thank you very much. And if you want to use Saily for free, just use the coupon code that's written here. And yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Vykintas. And round of applause. As we are slightly ahead of time, if it's okay with you, I do have a couple of questions, just so you know. So to summarize it all, would you say it's much easier to build it in-house, to build a new product within an existing unicorn, or still the freedom of doing it on your own from the get-go, is that maybe easier?
No, it's easier to build something while doing it standalone. Within a unicorn, you get involved in a lot of politics of how resources get allocated. You get rewarded for different things, not for the outcome itself, but for how you look like and how you present things and how friendly you are with people. So you need to be careful. It's way easier, just to get 5 people in the room and build something, launch, and see where it goes. So definitely.
All right, and to follow up with us on this topic, would you say that corporations, not exactly startups, but corporations should also try to build something like a new product within that? I mean, a lot of them already do that, but would you suggest corporations to do that? And what would be the ways to do that?
For quite a few startup people, the corporate startup is a curse word of sorts, because these recruiters reach out to you and ask you to join a corporate startup, which usually means that you are joining department, and that's about it. So I guess quite a few companies should be either involved in investing of early stage investing specifically, or they should be building their own products. If they are focused on B2C, I would advise them to build new products. Like majority of the B2C companies are multi-products. Like look at Google, Apple, and of sorts, majority of them are, because you can't. It's just impossible to win the market with only one of them, I guess.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Vykintas. And of course, once again, a round of applause for the first 1 million customers as well. And don't forget to take a photo. Well, it's gone, but you did do that.